it's funny because I came by it honest. My dad was a career military man. He was an EOD guy, so I knew what I was getting into. He didn't, in fact, he didn't recruit me for that. He never said a word. My mom was upset with him when he found out, or when she found out that I was going into EOD. She's like, "What have you done?" But I knew what I was getting into because I kind of grew up with it. So it was an easy thing for me to say yes to.
Well, I just think it's a great, absolutely reliability indicator for you on intel. If you've handled sensitive things that might go boom, I think you can handle counterintelligence. You're working on a big bill to overhaul our domestic counterintelligence effort. I did that when you were handling ordnance. I was already 10 years retired from counterintelligence, so I'm older than you. Tell people what's in this new bill.
A very permissive environment, and you compare that, and you know this from your work, you compare that to, say, for example, the former Soviet Union, or now Russia, China, North Korea, Iran. These are denied areas in large cases. In some cases, we know they're hostile, but they're certainly not open, and it's a real impediment to our ability to operate. Whereas our foreign adversaries take advantage of our open society, and they can pretty much, operate with impunity. And so we have to be more diligent about adopting that left of boom posture. And I think the Secure Act does that. It sort of realigns the CI enterprise so that there's deconfliction taking place at the highest levels. It's not all about opening up an investigation to secure a prosecution and a conviction. In some cases, it's about disrupting and disabling those networks.
Now, Congressman, my day, I call Reality Day, was the first day I got cleared into the FISA work I did at Justice beginning in 1984. And the first time I had a stack of FISA warrants put on my desk for the AG, and I opened up, I said, holy smokes, more colorful. How many people are in this country doing bad stuff? And those were Soviets and East Germans and Cubans back then in the early 80s. I don't know who they are now, but we haven't exactly been guarding the gate, have we?
Well, and this is a problem because we've kind of wrapped everything up in the context of counterterrorism. That's important. Don't get me wrong. But what we have now, and you mentioned Cubans. Cubans are still very, very good at exploiting our open society, and they'll work for the Russians. They'll work for the Chinese. But we also have a large number of Russians and a significant number of Chinese. And of course, we have a diaspora that also tends to be leveraged by the Chinese. And so we need to take a full account and try to get some measure of accountability here with just how many, foreign agents do we have operating on our soil. And that includes, not just those, the big near peer adversaries like Russia and China, but also the Cubans, who are very, very good at this and have been doing it for a long, long time, and Iranians, North Koreans, and others that present that challenge to us and start to operate in a more hardened fashion. We need to protect the homeland, certainly, and what we see is a continued exploitation of our open society by our adversaries.
Now, Congressman, before you came on, I was extolling the praises of Palantir, and I always tell people I'm an investor in it, so there's no conflict of interest that isn't disclosed. But we've got very sophisticated tools for detecting patterns and disruptions in patterns. What does the Secure Act do to get us into the 21st century in counterintelligence?
Well, it's kind of like when we were attacked on 9/11, we did a full review on what went wrong there, what led to that intelligence failure that we were caught flat-footed. And so we did a lot of different things to try to break down some of the siloing, the stovepiping, if you will, so that we had better communication across the IC enterprise. Well, it's the same thing with counterintelligence. What we have is we tend to have, sort of turf battles and things of this nature. We tend to look at through the lens of, prosecutions, convictions, and things like that. Now, it's great if we can, identify an individual, but, from a criminal perspective, sometimes it's more effective and more necessary that we disrupt those CI threats, rather than just wait around till they, do something that might be considered prosecutable, that we could present a warrant on for them and take them to court and adjudicate them. Sometimes that's, we're waiting too long. And there's a couple of examples I could cite on that. One is with the, that Cuban in the State Department, Cuban agent in the State Department, worked for 30 odd years. Once we finally got him, arrested him, took him to court, Now he's in jail. That's great. But what about all the damage he did for almost 40 years operating within our government? And we need to be able to deconflict across the IC as it applies to our CI efforts and coordinate and really assign the best athlete to take on those tasks. And sometimes that might be the FBI, but other times it might be other entities like, for example, the OSI within the Air Force. Army CI does a great job. NCIS, those are some examples. There are other agencies within the federal government as well across the IC enterprise that could be leveraged and brought into this fight. And then having that single individual at the ODNI that is sort of the individual, sort of like a referee, if you will, that determines which athlete is going to go in on a given case.
Now, Congressman, last question. 40 years ago, we weren't very much interested in arresting people. We followed them. We wanted to know who they were talking to that were Americans. Eventually, they get you the Hansons, the Walkers, the big-name Americans who are deeply into our security system and compromising it. If you follow the bad guys, they'll lead you to the really bad guys. Do you want to change that MO, or is that the MO you think works best?
That's what I think we need to strive for, because if all we're doing is waiting around for the metric of success being a conviction, then we're missing out on a whole lot of opportunity to identify, deter, disrupt those cells that exist currently. So we're reposturing. This is we're almost back in a Cold War footing. And, you know, right. You're a veteran of the Cold War. I'm a veteran of the Cold War. We know what it was like then. We repostured to execute the global war on terror, and we sort of took our eye off the ball. And now we have this emerging, it's, you know, a Cold War, certainly a Cold War posture with China for sure, that we need to think about, maybe go back to the future and say, what did we do back in that Cold War era that worked really well to help identify those bad actors, to help exploit those networks and take those down and prevent threats. So I think we do need to take a page out of history books.
I hope you are right, and good luck with the Secure Act. Representative Rick Crawford, keep coming back to keep us informed on that. It's the heavy lifting of keeping the country safe is counterintelligence, and I appreciate your taking the lead on it, Rick Crawford. Stay tuned, America.